just to open, to, in this unprecedented times that we're in, and just want to thank, all the healthcare workers, all the first responders, all the people out there that are making a lot of sacrifices, around the world, not just in our country, but around the world, to make, to beat this. It's heroic, what they're doing. And I don't ever want to lose sight or perspective of where we're at right now, the entire world, what we're trying to defeat. And it's something very difficult. I think our government here in Indiana has done a tremendous job. And the people of Indiana have done a tremendous job, with social distancing, listening to what the instructions were for us to, to stop this thing. And it's been an inconvenience for everybody, but it's been the right thing to do. And I always say, there's always light in the darkness. There's always light in the darkness. You just got to find it. It's been interesting just with my family being home this last 3.5 weeks that we've been able to, I almost forget, we have dinner tonight, we have dinner every night together. Our lives have been taken over by youth sports. I mean, they really had. And look, for the good. I mean, all our kids are active. They've been in youth sports. And so it was hard to get us all together at any point just to spend time together as a family to eat dinner. I mean, little things you kind of take for granted that we're doing now every night. To watch my kids, it's almost like when I grew up, to watch them have to go out and play in the yard and play baseball in the yard and find time with each other. I mean, that's been I'm not gonna lie, that's been very rewarding. Our team, our group of scouts, they've been unbelievable in this process. Not one of them has flinched once. They've not blinked. Any change, anything that's happened, they found answers to. And I'm fortunate. I am fortunate to have the group that I have with me and around me that, that supports. I mean, I always say it's never about one person. You're only as strong as the people that you have around you. And, our group is exceptionally strong, and I'm very fortunate to have them. They've solved problems along the way and found ways for us to be able to communicate, keep our process the same way. We've actually grown. There's a lot of things that I think we've figured out here over the last 3 weeks that we like and that we're going to continue to do going forward. We've still had some very healthy discussions. I kept waiting for somebody to break in and record it. But, it's been fun. We've had the same debate. We've got the same work done. We'll continue to go through this draft and operate as business as usual. All right. Questions?
All right. Mike Chappell, you're up first.
Chris, how you doing? Curious with when you bring in Phillip Rivers and your investment in him, how does that change your approach in the draft? Are you still looking for your quarterback of the future, or are they not related?
No, that's a really good question. I mean, all right. So a couple things here. I think one of the things, I think I've talked about this numerous times about you can't force that. You can't force the quarterback position in terms, especially in the draft. I think history's shown that. It's got to be the right guy, the right fit, for us and for our staff and for our organization. So I don't know when that's going to happen. Maybe this year, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now. I don't know. I can't, and I'm not going to force it, much to everybody's dismay. And it might drive everybody nuts, but I'm not going to force that issue. When we decide to take one up that we think is going to be the future guy of this franchise, you got to be right. And look, I don't want to discount, Jacoby Brissett. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's still a good player. This was a unique opportunity with Phillip. You have a potential Hall of Fame quarterback hit the market that has history with both our head coach and our offensive coordinator. So we're fortunate to have both these guys on the roster at the same time. And as we go forward, we'll figure out, what we need to do at the position. But for now, we feel pretty good, about the position.
All right, so I'm going to go over that real quick. And while I'm here, I want to go ahead and say thank you, Racket Girl 19, AZ Alex, and Cade99 for joining me on the stream on Sportscaster. However, he makes a very fair point. I've preached this all offseason, even after Philip Rivers got signed. The Colts cannot afford to spend a draft pick on a quarterback that they don't feel is right for their team, like right for their locker room, right for their scheme. Okay, they got to find the right guy. If that guy is not in the draft or does not fall to them in the draft, then they're not going to use up a draft pick for him. There's no point in spending a second or a third round draft pick on a quarterback that you don't feel can be your premier quarterback of the future. If you don't feel he's right, then don't grab him. You might feel he's right. The guy next to you might feel he's right. But if this guy right here, Chris Ballard or Frank Reich, does not feel as though that quarterback is right for their locker room, their scheme, everything of that nature, they're not going to spend the draft pick to grab him. They're going to be patient and wait. If he's not there this year, wait till next year. This is a position that needs patience. You have to find the right guy. You can't rush something like that. If you rush it, you end up just throwing your draft picks away. If you rush it and you're wrong, right? Be patient. Find the guy. The guy will show up sooner or later. Like he said, 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. He will show up in the draft at your spot. That's when you pick him. But other than that, don't waste the pick on a potential backup. That's just all there is to it. Not when you have a good backup on your team already. You're not shopping for a backup. You're shopping for someone that can be better than who you already have. And not marginally better. When you're sitting here with Philip Rivers, maybe 1, maybe 2 years, you got Philip Dorsett. Oh my God, I just said Philip Dorsett. Jacoby Brissett. You need a quarterback that is better. Now, Ballard, right? They like Jacoby. They really like what Jacoby brings. You may not like it, but I mean, he did get injured. He had injuries to his wide receiver group. That does have a lot of effect. Now, the tape doesn't lie. There was some issues there. But every quarterback had the issues there. But we'll see. I still think, you don't grab an Eason or a Hurts because they are not going to be your premier quarterback of the future. Don't throw your draft pick away. That's my opinion on that. Now, let's go over to the next. Let's see what he has to say about the next question.
All right, let's go Zach Kiefer.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Zach.
So the experts think this is probably as deep as it's been in a long time at the wide receiver spot. You guys haven't added anybody in free agency. Does that allow you to be more flexible considering where you're at in the draft, not with the first round pick right now? Or does that mean, it could be a time to get up and get someone if you feel really aggressive?
Well, look, there is a lot of depth at wideout in the draft. We feel very good about that at every level. From guys we think can start to guys that we think can play significant roles. I think you always got to let the draft play out. It's hard to predict it before. It's even hard to predict it when you're going through it. You just got to be patient and let it play out. And the one thing y'all been around me long enough. We're not going to force a pick. I think you make your biggest mistakes when you force things, Zach. When okay, we have to have this, so let's just we're always going to take the best player. If we have a guy ranked above him, we spend all this time getting this board right and set. And once it's set on, by next Thursday, we're not changing. We're not moving it. So whether it's wide out, whether it's, defensive line, whether it's O-line, Right. I mean, you don't know. You got to let it play out. We're always going to take the higher talent. Now, if it's even and it's a position of need, then yeah, we'll take the guy that's the position of need over the even. But we do like saying that. We do like the depth at wideout in the draft. Getting T.Y. Hilton back healthy again. Getting Parrish Campbell healthy again. Having Zach Pascal. It's not like where it's a complete void at the position. We do think we have some talented guys there.
All right. I also now want to take the time to say thank you, Steph Lover 2983, for joining the stream on Sportscaster. Now I'm going to go over this real quick. He said it. There's depth. Me and Ray, we just got Ray from here on Sportscaster. We just got done doing a stream earlier today about how much depth is in this draft at wide receiver. Man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of depth. But they're still going to follow their board, right? They got a big board, and they go BPA, always BPA, best player available. And if it so happens that all the BPAs on their board when it's their time to draft are even, and they got multiple players, and one of those players happens to be a position of need like wide receiver, they might go ahead and grab that wide receiver. But they're always going to go best player available, right? That's how they got Quentin Nelson. That's how they got Darius Leonard. That's how they got Bobby Okereke. That's how they got Teray. That's how they get their play. This is how Chris Ballard operates. So far, it's been showing a lot of pluses. Also, he makes a big statement. Like I said earlier, T.Y. Hilton was hurt for half the season. Parris Campbell was hurt for the majority of the season. And when it came to it, Zach Pascal stepped up big time and became the number 2 receiver. At times, he was the number 1 receiver, number 1 option on the field because everybody else was hurt. Even Devin Funchess was hurt for the entire season. So the slew of injuries at wide receiver really hurt the Colts. But a lot of those players are going to be healthy again and back on the field this season. So wide receiver may not be as terrible, as big of a need that you might think, because there is talent there. But he will definitely draft it if that wide receiver is BPA at that situation. Let's continue.
All right, let's go Mike Wells.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, Wells.
How you doing?
I'm good, brother.
And me, go back to Rivers. I know you talked about it being a unique situation and everything, but when you think about how you have approached free agency since you got hired, one thing you've always talked about is younger players still who haven't reached.
We're in a unique spot here that we were able to do this.
Sorry.
Sometimes if from a cap standpoint, you wouldn't be able to make these moves, but he's done such a tremendous job. And because it is the quarterback position and because of his stature, it just made it a unique opportunity. Every other guy that we've acquired has been really fit into our mold. Maybe Xavier, because he's 29 years old, is a little bit, different. But for the most part, we've stayed pretty disciplined, with what we want to do.
Okay, George Bremer.
Hey, George.
How you doing?
Good.
With the uncertainty around.
He just spoken about Xavier Rhodes being 29 years old, a little bit past what Chris Ballard likes to do in free agency. This is the article that's up on Sportscaster right now, up in the upper right-hand corner. You can click and check it out on Clutch Points. He is 29, but it was a low-end contract for a high-ceiling cornerback. that was just an all-pro 3 years ago. Okay? Xavier Rhodes was an outstanding player 3 years ago. Has had some injury concerns the last 2 years, and because of his contract was so high and he's had injuries the last couple of years, the Vikings released him to cut some of that contract out. Chris Ballard jumped on him immediately, said, hey, we'll give you a little bit of money. You come here, you tack that with the money that the Vikings still owe you. You're making a nice chunk of cash and can be possibly another starter on another team. I think that he has this is the reason why he did that. Even though he is 29, he still has a lot of good ability, a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, still has hands. I think this was a good move for him, especially considering he just released Pierre Desir. He needed someone to replace Desir.
On this offseason and how long it's going to be and all those sorts of things, does it change the way you stack the draft board at all? Are you looking for fast learners? Are you looking for more polished prospects? Any of those factors?
No, we'll continue to draft, how we do. I mean, I don't think you can enter into a draft thinking, well, just about one season. You need to be thinking long term at all points. I mean, I don't ever draft a guy thinking, well, he's just going to help us this year. And matter of fact, I've probably made some mistakes where I didn't take a guy or two that I wish I'd have had more of a long-term outlook on the player. But now, look, our characteristics that we're looking for, those are two things that, football intelligence and, being able to pick it up quickly, those are all things we look for anyways. But our approach won't change.
Okay, Charlie Clifford.
That's a good sign of a good GM. Just because the team is different, is more rounded and filled out, they're not specifically going for targeted players. Their philosophy stays the same. Build the team the way they build it, because the success of the team itself. Now, the record being 7-9 doesn't seem that way, but the slew of injuries happened. That's why the record is what it is. But the team in general is so well-rounded. They got a very good defense. They got a very solid run game. They got a very solid offensive line. The question mark remains around the quarterback position in the wide receiver group, but that's where the injuries happened last season. And so that's obviously where a lot of questions still lie.
Hey, Chris, thanks for the time.
Hey, Charlie.
Quick question just on the logistics. Once the draft kicks off, how does it look on your end behind the scenes? Is there a way you can mimic and be best prepared for this virtual deal?
Yeah. I mean, all right, so here's the good news. All 32 teams are under the same conditions. Nobody's got an advantage over anybody. And, the more that we've been through these type of meetings, and we've used a couple different platforms, one, to keep people a little off balance of knowing what we're using, we've gotten more comfortable with it. I mean, if you think about it, what's the difference between us being here right now and then us being in the media room at the complex? There's no difference. Other than y'all get to sit and shoot the bull for a little bit before. We're still getting the same work done and being just as productive.
Okay, Kevin Bowen.
Hi, Kev.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
You mentioned Xavier earlier. Can you kind of go into detail on going from Pierre to Xavier?
Yeah, well, Pierre was tough because he.
That's awesome. Shout out to Kevin Bowen. Had him on my stream a few times. We've talked to him. I'll probably have him again after the draft, possibly. Maybe even before. I might give him a call up, see, hey, you want to come join me right before the draft, kind of go over a few things. But shout out for him, bringing up the Xavier Rhodes situation that this whole thing is about in the first place.
He's such a great kid, great human being, but, at the end of the day, we made a decision that we thought was the best thing, for the team here, this year and going forward. And then getting into Xavier, look, we have a coach that has history with him, Jonathan Gannon, and also Allen. But saying that, this guy's been a Pro Bowl corner in the league. He's only 29 years old. He's got some unique traits. We think we can get him back to playing at that level. I think he's pretty hungry. I think, being released by by Minnesota sparked a fire in him. And so it's fun. It's gonna be fun to watch him play with a chip on his shoulder, because I think he can. I think he can still be a high performer for us.
You see it all the time. Guys have injuries, end up getting released or traded. Drops like he said, a chip on their shoulders, and they come out and they play, some of their best ball that they've ever played in the NFL. This is something that they are truly hoping that they'll get from Xavier Rhodes.
Joel Erickson.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, Chris. You guys haven't signed anybody at wide receiver in free agency. Was it just didn't have a fit with the class, didn't like the class, that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's a couple guys that we kind of dabbled with, but just didn't, at the end of the day, just didn't work out. Sometimes it happens that way.
Okay, let's go Jim Aiello.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Chris, thanks for doing this. I want to ask about DeForest and trading the 13th pick. It probably couldn't have been easy for you, I'm thinking, but I think obviously it reflects on how you guys feel about DeForest. But I was wondering if you could talk about that one, but the other part, how does it reflect on what you see kind of at that part of the draft?
I think first, number one, it was easy. I thought it was very easy. Here's a 26-year-old. He's got everything we stand for, high character. He's a producer. He was one of the best. All you got to do is put on the Super Bowl game. If you want to watch guys, the great players produce in the big games. Just watch the Super Bowl game. That guy played his ass off, and he was disruptive the entire game. He's durable. He's got the character. He plays a premium position in this defense. It was an easy decision. I know the 13th pick is a high price, but we haven't made a lot of big moves, like this. And a chance to acquire a player of this caliber with his character, I thought was a no-brainer. As a matter of fact, I held my freaking breath to make sure, praying that it was going to get done. I couldn't be more pleased about getting this young man into this organization. And I think you'll see the same things I see here going forward. He's a young guy. And look, premium players cost a premium price. That's the cost of doing it. That's the cost of having a great player. And we're going to have some more coming up here in the next couple of years on our own team that are going to cost a lot of money. But that's the price to having good players. You want to have good players, they're going to cost you a lot of money. And I thought at the end of the day, the 13th pick versus DeForest was a no-brainer.
Absolutely. A lot of people want to say, well, the 13th pick plus how much you signed him on the he earns that contract. He's the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league, but he's played like the second best defensive tackle in the league behind Aaron Donald. The guy's been around. You think, well, he was on a team that had Eric Armstead and Bosa and Clark and all them. He made those guys better. He helped those guys get stats. He was doing the same thing when he was by himself. We didn't have all those players back when he was a rookie and second-year player here in the NFL, and he was blowing up offensive lines, getting in the backfield. I got a great video here on Sportscaster and on YouTube going over some of his film room. This kid's going to be outstanding, and he absolutely deserves the contract that he got, and well worth the 13th pick, because, the 13th pick, you could maybe grab somebody up there in the draft, but there's no telling what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get yourself an all-pro player or a pro bowler at the 13th. He could end up being a bust. You know what you're getting from DeForest Buckner because he's already played in the NFL and he's shown you what he can do. and he's only 26, which means by the time this contract's over, he'll be ready for another contract, and he'll still have time left to play because he is at his peak right now.
Okay, Stephen Holder.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, how we doing?
Good.
Hey, I think if you look around the league, it feels like most of the high-end quarterback starters, they were first-round picks for the most part. And this is not a question about the Colts. This is a general question. When you look beyond that, and until later rounds, we talk about developmental quarterbacks all the time. What constitutes that for you, and how does a guy go from developmental to maybe more than that? Like how hard is it, I guess, to decide who can be a guy who can't?
It's tough. And I mean, I think opportunity a lot of time, Stephen, I think just getting the opportunity to play and prove it. I'll never forget we took Rex Grossman. I don't know when it was 2003. And then the next year we took Kyle Orton, 2004 or 5. And then next thing you know, Kyle Orton, it was 2005. As a rookie, Grossman gets hurt. Kyle Orton ends up being the starter, and we end up winning the division. I think a lot of times it's just opportunity, getting the reps in live games. I think that you look at the traits that you want in your quarterbacks, things that you're looking for. And then, you hope you've got them ready enough to when they get the opportunity, they're going to perform.
All right. Dave first.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for doing this again.
Yes, sir.
Kind of not necessarily a deep question, but just kind of a philosophical one. Obviously, the process has changed a bit in the last 3.5 weeks. You're doing stuff you probably never thought you'd dreamed of ever doing, getting ready for a draft. Do you think that has affected the result come next week?
I guess over time will prove that right or wrong. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, our process really hasn't changed much. Look, we've never been our coaches didn't go on the road a lot anyways. We'd send a few coaches out, but it was never a big emphasis for us where we're putting the coaches on the road a lot. Now, our contact points with scouts and players, yes. But, there's, you find new ways to do that, and it's through avenues like this. So, essentially, have there been some tweaks to the process? Yes, but not a major overhaul to the process. And look, I mean, I think we know what's at stake during this draft. This one's going to be heightened, and they're already scrutinized at the 100th degree anyways. This one's going to get scrutinized at the 1000th degree on who took who and, what was the success down the line. And like I told our guys, so look, we're not going to change the way we do business. We're not going to change our process and how we scout and how we make decisions. We're going to draft, and we're going to let it rip. And to be honest with you, I'd like more picks. I feel very confident. I'd like more picks. We'll see if that happens or not. But, I feel confident in our group. I feel confident in our work and what we've done. And we think we're going to acquire good players.
All right. So thanks, Isaac, for joining. And he asked a good question. If I was actually here, if I was asking him questions, and no, this is a recording. However, I had spoken with the Indianapolis Colts, certain players in the front office, asked them, hey, can I get in, do some interviews, maybe get in on a few things. And I was greeted with, when training camp comes. When training camp comes, then I'm going to go in, meet with some of these people. That's if this whole protocol for the coronavirus lets down. I'm going to go in, meet with some people, talk with some people, interview some people. That's the goal. So thanks for the question, Isaac. I really appreciate that. I noticed you and Ray use it. Yes, Clutch Points is awesome. Actually, Ray and I are actual streamers now for Sportscaster and Clutch Points have a collaboration now. And Joe Nubo, Ray Ralph, and myself, we are the NFL videocasters for Sportscaster covering clutch points. So thank you for that question. Back on to the actual video.
All right, Philip B. Wilson.
Thanks for your time, Chris. Appreciate it. First off, is this the adjusted draft central behind you here where you're at? I mean, is this where it's going to happen?
I actually turned around because I didn't want you to see the rest of the basement that I'm working out of.
I wondered how unusual that's going to be for you to draft. Is that your basement or is that
yes, sir.
home?
Yeah, it's my basement.
Will you have your staff with you, or are you guys going to be remote communicating?
No, everything's remote. I'll be alone here at home. If you look, I'm sure they'll show flashes, and you'll see kids running around during it. I mean, it is what it is. I got 5 kids and I got 3 dogs, and eventually they're going to flash in front of the screen. I mean,
okay.
I've been waiting for my dogs to pop up here, and they haven't popped down here in this basement.
All right. What I wanted to ask you, is there a moment in your career that will stick with you forever that you learned the lesson of not reaching in the draft?
That's a good question.
You sound like you learned the hard way by how you've been insistent on you can't reach on a pick.
Yep. I'll tell you one, and everybody won't say it now, but taking Quentin Nelson. I mean, when everybody said you can't take a guard at 6. I mean, I even heard it. I heard it in a lot of different spots, but you take the best player, man. You take the best player. Quentin Nelson was the best freaking player at that point in the draft. I'm not sure if he wasn't the best player in the entire draft. That to me solidified it and said, you know what, just I don't care what position he's at, take the best player.
Absolutely take the best player every time. Yeah, there has been a lot of Colts news with the whole, not necessarily, I mean, yeah, they have a little bit of New Jersey thing situation going on, but mostly we have a new word mark for the Colts, secondary logo that has the C with the state of Indiana inside of it, and then the horseshoe, kind of like a horseshoe on its side. There absolutely is. Let's go back.
Thank you.
I think we know the impact that kid's had.
Yeah. Stacey Dales.
Hey, Stacey. Your mute's on. You got to do your mute.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'm glad everybody here is, hopefully everybody's safe and healthy. Just on a call with the Lions, talking about logistics and what they're doing. As far as backup plans, redundancy plans, what, as a staff, are you doing logistically right now, heading into next week in terms of the logistics?
Well, we'll have look, at the end of the day,
what surrounds you?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'll pick up my phone and I'll call in the pick. But saying that, I mean, look, I've got a generator now.
It's funny that you asked that, Isaac, that I might actually be doing a live coverage of the draft. Myself and a couple other guys that cover the Indianapolis Colts were talking about possibly getting together, doing a joint stream, and possibly doing that. It's not locked down yet, but we're working on it, and hopefully it can come to fruition. Thanks for the question.
Now put in my house to make sure we have backup electricity. I make sure we have a backup internet. All those things. We will have a run through internally one day in the next few days, and also with the league. We'll go through every scenario. Okay, let's say I get dropped off, my internet and my electricity goes down, and we're on the clock. What do we do? I mean, we'll walk through every scenario to make sure we're prepared for it. Look, I don't know. I got a couple guys that are as anal retentive as you. Ed Dodds. Ed does not leave a freaking detail. There's nothing that doesn't go checked here between him and Mike Bloom and all our scouts. They make sure that we're going to be covered on that end. And they know how I am, because I'll just kind of flippantly say, well, I'll just pick up the phone and make the call. What do you mean? I mean, but they're pretty detail oriented, and they make sure we have everything mapped out.
Okay, we got time for a few more here. Zach Kiefer, you want to You want to ask? There you go.
Chris, you talked a lot about not forcing the quarterback spot. I get that. Not forcing it. You can't reach. At this moment, you have nobody at that position under contract for 21. You hope for the best at that spot. Maybe Rivers comes back for another year. Maybe he doesn't. If everything goes wrong, what's your level of concern long term without anybody in place for that position moving forward?
Well, I can already see the story for this year. Saying that, look, we'll make decisions when they need to be made. And we'll always have our eye on that position. It's just, we're always going to have our eye on that position. I wish I had a crystal ball in front of me to be able to rub it and tell you what we're going to look like a year from now. I'm just trying to get through, the next week here to get through the draft. But it's one that we'll always keep our eye on, Zach.
All right, Mike Wells.
Chris, you've always talked about controlling the line of scrimmage, offense, defense. We see what you have an offensive line. Defensive line has been a focus this offseason. When you look at this roster, I know we still have next week. Do you believe with the addition of Rivers that you guys are ready to take another step forward? I mean, based on what you've done so far and then what you hope to do next week?
Signing, it's like anything else. I mean, you got, at the end of the day, all the accolades, everybody's saying, well, you did good getting this guy, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to go work, you got to come together as a team, and you got to prepare, and you got to play, and then you got to win. I know as bad as everybody thought it was last year, look, we finished 7-9. It wasn't like there's some games in there we could have easily not screwed it up, and we could have been looking, 9-7, 10-6 in the face.
I just had to cut that in right there. 9-7, 10-6 in the face. A lot of those losses were losses we shouldn't have lost. We should not have lost to Miami. We had Brian Hoyer playing against Miami. We should not have lost to Pittsburgh. We had Brian Hoyer playing in Pittsburgh. Just throwing the ball away left and right. There was multiple games where Adam Vinatieri was dealing with an injury, and we should have had somebody else out there, in my opinion, kicking while he was injured. Chase McLaughlin, for instance, who is now under contract for the Indianapolis Colts because he came in late in the season and did an exceptional job as a kicker. We could have easily been 10-6. But that's not how things turned out.
It wasn't like we were that far off. So I don't look at any year, and I probably answer that question no differently any year, Mike, because every year's different. Every team's different. There's change, and you got to work, you got to earn it, you got to come together. During these circumstances that we're under right now, it'll be interesting to see, how things get done and how teams come together here over the next, 3 or 4 months. I mean, that's always one of the things that, the camaraderie, the, guys getting to know each other, being able to do it virtually now. It's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out over the next few months.
Okay, we're going to do 2 more. Chap, you're up next.
Hey, Chap.
Chris, quick question, non-draft related. You guys have made it very clear you keep planning for sort of normalcy, the plan, the schedule. Could you imagine September football with fans, football without fans? What do you think?
I don't know, Mike. I really don't. I wish I could. That's just being honest. I don't know. We'll follow what the league, has us do. They'll have a plan. Owners and, the league will get together and have a plan. I know this. They'll do what's best for the safety of all, for safety of our fans, for the safety of our players, safety of our staff. It's such a time of uncertainty. We just don't know. I'm always going to prepare and plan for the best. I'm going to prepare, and we will prepare as though we're starting up and ready to go to work when training camp starts, if that's when it is.
I had a actual stream on that on Sportscaster as well. Oh yeah, Isaac, no problem with that. Honestly, as I'm a Colts fan, I love T.Y. Hilton. and you're asking me Paris Campbell or T.Y., I love T.Y. Hilton, but T.Y. has had 2 bad leg injuries in the last 2 seasons. He's had upper and lower ankle sprain one season, then he had a bad quad injury, hamstring injury. Oh no, this was not an interview. This is just a press conference that I'm going over that happened. But anyhow, I think Paris Campbell, if he can stay healthy with his youth, with his speed, with his abilities, I think he could become the next T.Y. Hilton. Only he's taller than T.Y. He's over 6 foot, whereas T.Y. is a shorter receiver. So I actually like Paris Campbell going forward. While he was healthy last season, he showed good things. It's just whether or not he could stay healthy. And the stream that I did earlier that Chris Ballard just talked about with the whole, the NFL will do whatever it needs to do to protect, do whatever they need to protect not only the players, but the fans. Even if they play games with no fans in the stands, you got to understand there's 53 guys on each roster. So if there's 2 teams, that's 106 players. Plus you got coaches, staff, NFL staff, media, referees. You're looking at over 200 people there. 200. One starter, one coach, anyone who happens to have the coronavirus at that time will spread it to every person there. That's something they want to avoid. So, to be honest, I don't think that they'll, unless the coronavirus dies down in the next month or so, if it's still up like it is now, I don't see him even playing games with no fans in the stands, because it's not like basketball where you got 11 players per team. Yes, we do work for clutch points now. And I do believe that they'll get another receiver in the draft. Yes, I'm hoping that with the 34th or 44th pick, the Indianapolis Colts will select a really good receiver, especially since there's going to be so many high-quality wide receivers in the second round. Guys that could fall to those positions are like Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Denzel Mims, Rager. There's so many that could follow those positions that, you know, depending upon who Chris Ballard wants and who falls, they have a chance of getting one. But, hey, I want to thank everyone for joining this stream, going over what Chris Ballard's pre-draft press conference was. This press conference, as you see, was via over the internet, and that's how he works now. That's how all coaches and players and stuff, they keep in contact. This is similar to how the draft will be, and it's great. I think this is a great idea. As you can tell, it wasn't bad. It wasn't choppy. It worked out really, really well. I had little problems at the beginning with a sound issue, and I apologize for that. I didn't realize that I had sound going on all my tabs for my streams that was running. I didn't catch that till too late. I apologize. But, hey, thank you for joining the stream. If you're watching on Sportscaster or YouTube, give me a follow. Check out my my channel. Give me a follow. Hit the like button. And if you're watching on YouTube, check out the description. At the bottom of the description, I have some links I would love for you to check out. And until next time, I am Lawrence Owen. This is Colts Law. And I want you to have a good one.